Ronan Farrow at the Women in the World Summit in New York City in 2015. Lucas Jackson, Reuters. There's a lot to be said about the New Yorker's big, multi-sourced expose of how New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has abused 4 different women. As I have documented at length, Schneiderman is one of President Trump's bitterest, longtime antagonists and a self-styled leader of the resistance. But one point that I keep thinking about is how Ronan Farrow, one of the piece's authors and a key figure in the downfall of Harvey Weinstein, has truly found his calling as a print journalist exposing sexual abuse. What is particularly striking is the contrast with Farrow's original, failed journalistic career as a MSNBC television personality. Farrow, the son of Mia Farrow and his own mother, leaves doubt as to this. Either Woody Allen or Frank Sinatra initially had a too easy path up the ladder. He got a UNICEF gig in his mother's footsteps at 14, graduated college at 15, got a job in the Obama administration out of law school at 22, and was on air on MSNBC at 27. He's a smart guy, as his educational credentials, including Yale Law and a Rhodes Scholarship, attest, but came off on TV as shallow and callow, a guy who was handed things for his good looks and family name and connections. As you can imagine, however, growing up in Woody Allen's household left a lot of marks on his perspective about sexual predation, and as he recently discussed in a commencement speech, that ultimately led him to follow his true calling at some risk to his career. The reality is, I was not celebrated when I said about breaking the stories I broke this past year, but the reality is my career was on the rocks. And as a result of my tackling this story as doggedly as it did, it fell apart almost completely. There was a moment about a year ago when I didn't have the institutional support of my news organization. My contract was ending, and after I refused to stop work on the story, I did not have a new one. My book publisher dropped me, refusing to look at a single page of a manuscript I'd labored over for years. I found out another news outlet was racing to scoop me on the Weinstein story, and I knew I was falling behind. I did not know if I'd ever be able to report that story, or if a year of work would amount to anything. I'm not being falsely humble. I was sincerely at a moment when I did not know if I would have a job in journalism a month or 2 months after, or ever again. There were so many people in my ear at that time making such good arguments that what I was doing was a mistake. Not because they were evil, but because they looked at the world as it was a year ago and concluded, this isn't worth it. You'll tell one story at the expense of so many others. They were being rational about what our culture would accept and what it would care about based on the existing evidence. And these were people I trusted. My boss is saying, you have got to stop, let it go. My agent saying, it's causing too many speed bumps for your career, you have got to let it go. Even loved ones saying, is this really worth it? Pointing out that I would risk my whole career for a story that might not even make a dent. There's an important lesson here, maybe more than one. When Farrow was given a platform without a cause, he was not that good at it. When he found his cause, he created a lasting platform for himself. And now that he's proven that he can break stories like this, the women who can tell them no, they can trust him. It's easy, and in some sense just to needle and sometimes outright mock people who get handed opportunities they haven't earned because of who they are. But it's also not their fault, and brought along less rapidly, they can grow into it. I respected the self-awareness of Farrow's erstwhile MSNBC colleague Luke Russert, when he stepped away from his platform at age 30 because he felt he needed to see more of the world outside political journalism. I'm also reminded of Meghan McCain, who was roundly derided by conservative writers, myself included, a decade back as vapid and uninformed, but who has emerged in recent years as a dogged and prepared interviewer at The View. I'm always inclined to have more respect for people who have faced some adversity and worked for what they got. In a way, that can be a harder thing for people born with a lot of advantages and connections to accomplish, and they are sometimes done a disservice by being promoted before they are ready for prime time. But no matter where you start in life, sooner or later you have to be judged on your own merits. Farrow has found his investigative beat, and he's making a difference doing something he believes in. This week, I've seen a lot of people weighing in on John McCain's announcement that President Trump is not invited to his funeral. In case you missed it, the news was initially reported by the New York Times. His intimates have informed the White House that their current plan for his funeral is for Vice. Read more. Abortion is not pro-life. That the sentence even needs to be written is a testament to the hubris and overreach of modern abortion rights activism. As each day it becomes decidedly more pro-abortion and undeniably less pro-choice. In just over a decade, this movement of death has stealthily shifted from. Read more. A few days ago, a mother on a prospective student tour at Colorado State University phoned campus police and reported suspicious behavior from two brothers who weren't answering questions, kept their hands in their pockets, showed up to the tour late, and were wearing dark clothing with scary words. She. Read more. We hear a lot on the right about the pernicious, Kulakian, elitist forces that, luxuriating in their favored swamps, are hell-bent on obstructing President Trump and his agenda. We hear less about the Republican primary voters who routinely serve as their own worst enemies, and, by extension, as the president's. Read more. The Washington Capitals' victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins last night to defeat them in the series and advance to the conference finals shouldn't have epic significance. It was only a second-round series, but for Caps fans like me it does. I've been a Caps fan forever. I grew up in Northern Virginia and Read more. Miss Timpf kindly pitched in on the NR 2018 Spring Webathon, and if you missed her wisdom-infused plea for assistance, I encourage you to read it here. Truth be told, it is tough slogging to reach our goal of $210,000. Why that figure? That's detailed here by yours truly, but in essence it comes down to. Read more. Ahead of Vladimir Putin's inauguration, how strange to use that term about a dictatorship, the political opposition rallied across Russia. Some protesters said they had been inspired by Armenians, who poured into the streets to protest their own would-be Putin, ultimately securing his resignation. In Read more. Michael Cannon of the Cato Institute purports to be suggesting that conservatives have the Alfie Evans case all wrong, but he seems to me to be concentrating on ancillary aspects of the argument that people on the right have been making about the case. It is certainly true that a lot of conservatives have. Read more. All over Russia, the opposition held rallies, protesting Putin's continued undemocratic rule. They rallied peacefully, but some 2,000 of them were arrested, some of them violently. Some of them were children or adolescents. The pictures are horrifying. Why does the government do this? Because they know. Read more. Animation, I believe, is art's most revealing medium. Like all scripted entertainment, cartoons can tell insightful stories informed by the observations and experiences of their writers, but it's the unique visual demands of animation that give it unparalleled cultural power. Since nothing in a cartoon exists. Read more.